Greetings, everybody. Welcome to 1 Degree of Scandalous with the one and only Kato.
That's me.
And I'm Tom Zenner. Thank you so much for joining us. We're back. Hey, we're in our old studio. Fun to be back here. Third wheel.
Yeah, I like the whole backdrop. It's looking good.
Yeah, it's fun. Big old LED wall behind us here, and great
traveled.
staff. Jeff, great job.
You traveled recently, and your daughter got a full scholarship to Boston College.
Well, the full scholarship would be nice, but she did get a scholarship, and she was recruited, and she committed to Boston College.
Oh my God, you got to be the proudest father ever.
It's very exciting. I'm very grateful. She worked really hard. She's a dedicated student, dedicated athlete. She's no nonsense, driven, and she deserved this.
She's track, right?
Track. She's a hurdler, and it's just been an amazing process. We talked about it. She had some great trips: Notre Dame, TCU, Harvard. So great trips, but Boston College is the perfect fit for her. And Kato, I tell everybody, I've matured as a human, and you have to do this in life. You have to admit when you're wrong.
Yeah.
And man, I could not be more wrong. I lived in Boston and worked there years ago, 20 some years ago, as the sports anchor at Fox. And it just never worked for me there. My style didn't mesh with the city. And the Boston teams weren't winning back then. They were all bad. It was Brady's rookie year way back then. And I did not have the best experience there. And I blamed Boston. But Boston, I apologize. What a world-class, amazing city. I think it's now my favorite city. It's just incredible. But it was me. It was me. I was the jerk.
Oh, I got it. So when your daughter goes to these colleges, do they have tape of her? They've seen her. Is that, or did she doesn't do anything while she's there, right? They don't make her.
Correct. They don't do a tryout or anything.
So they already know. They've seen her.
Mm-hmm. And in track, it's times. You can look at somebody's times, and then if those are up to the standards of what they would recruit, and then you send them some video too.
That's pretty impressive.
But it's been a good journey. And my older daughter played Division I sports too, soccer, so I kind of know the process. And I played sports, and it's a game. It's you almost have to know how to play the game because there's so much pressure on these kids right now to get into the schools that they want. And if you can use athletics and leverage that, it's such an advantage. But I feel bad for the kids because, especially out here in Southern California, and it's probably like that all over the country, but they just put so much pressure on themselves.
Real quick, you went to other schools, and what is that like when you're going to other schools and you leave, you shake hands, it's like, we're going to come back here. Do you feel like they feel like you burnt them?
You know what? I told her at the beginning, I said, the hardest thing is going to be telling people no. But it really wasn't that bad because it was so obvious that Boston College was the best spot for her. Okay. And we left those other trips thinking, it just doesn't check every box.
Did you know when you did that, did you let them know that's how you felt? Or did you have it where you were kind of like, oh, we love it here?
You got to do that. You got to act like you're definitely really interested, for sure. No, we did that.
So you pulled a little Sam Bankman-Fried on them.
Wait a second.
What's going on? You kind of you played the room.
Thank you, Kato. Comparing me to SBF. By the way, the topic of our show today, with a reporter that was in the courtroom for every single. This is a fascinating. I'm just really excited about what this episode's going to be talking about SBF. But no, it wasn't like that at all, Kato.
I would say, speaking of sports, I kind of had a dream come true too.
Okay.
For years, I've been saying, please get rid of Craig Counsell. I'm not going to make it a sports show. Brewers got rid of him, and I was correct. He was 1-10 in the playoffs, but he went to the rival Cubs, and it's just really the owner, Mark Anastasio, who I'm not a big fan of, but he said, Craig lost my respect and the city of Milwaukee's respect. And I don't know. It may be. He got $8 million. I understand that he never got a counteroffer, but he never was asked. Yeah. He didn't tell them. He
wanted to leave.
Yeah.
He was a free agent.
He's from there, though. He's from Whitefish Bay. He's right. Milwaukee loves him. So it's sort of like a spit in the face. They're saying, I think it's the best move ever. I don't know who we're going to get, but people on Bleacher Report, who out of Chicago, huge numbers, millions of subscribers. They're doing a whole thing about Kato Kaelin as the new manager. So I've been writing, I said, I like to be the manager, but I have a haircut appointment. And I'm doing all these things, but it's all being retweeted. And I would love to be the manager. I'm putting a plea out there. I'll be the manager. I already have my staff that I want hired. Friends of mine. Tom, you're on the list. But actually, they know sports. I guarantee I get one tryout. Give me the first 10 games. I guarantee I will be a 700% winner. I'll go 8-2 at least.
Milwaukee Brewers, I am begging you. I am pleading with you. you're a big deal in Milwaukee. Nationally, not that big of a deal. You bring in Kato Kaelin to manage 3 games during spring training in Arizona. What do you have to lose? It would be the most entertaining thing. The whole country would be talking about it. It'd be trending everywhere, and you'd probably win the games. And even if you didn't, you'd be entertaining as hell. Kato would be blasting his own players as they're rounding third, for not running fast enough or something they did the previous inning on Twitter.
It'll be baseball related. I know what I'm talking about. So thank you, Tom. I hope so.
Keep pushing it. You never know.
Yeah.
You never know. All right. Hey, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. Give us a like, share it, tell everybody about the show. This is the one and only Kato Kaelin. This is where you get his perspective every single week of what's going on in the world with these cases.
I demand respect right now. Jeff, stand up when my name's said. Would you please? Gosh darn, that's more like it. Jeff, our producer, just stood up.
And pop culture and true crime, that's what we do. We get right into the middle of it. So if that's what you enjoy in this crazy world where there's a lot of heavy things going on right now, tune into us every week and we'll give you a break. Non-political.
1 degree of Scandalous.
All right. Okay, so we're going to bring in our guest. We're going to talk about Sam Bankman-Fried, the whole thing going down, FTX going down, from a reporter, a great reporter.
In the courtroom.
In the courtroom every single minute, right after this break. All right, let's get into our guest here. And Kato, this is going to be a lot of fun. Everybody remembers the big story that went down really literally about a year ago, right as we're taping this thing. And it was the SBF, Sam Bankman-Fried. A lot of people, it's the first time they ever saw this whacked out weirdo, right? And then they got a lot of him, although he was in the news a lot, but you had to kind of be in the business world and in the crypto world to really truly understand what he was all about.
Even coming to the studio today, I had a little bit of that because on the side of Coengo off the freeway, a guy said, "We'll work for Bitcoin." I saw that.
I believe it.
It's everything.
Did you reach in your wallet and throw him a couple codes?
I don't even know what Bitcoin.
A couple flash drives.
You know how much I had to read about our guest?
Good.
And I am
study up.
I was talking to Jacob Silverman. I'm reading about his bio, and I said, I gotta meet this guy.
Well, you're going to right now. What do you say we bring him in?
Yeah. Oh, there he is.
Jacob, welcome. Thank you so much. And you know what? I was really excited about getting you on the show. Number one, you've got a phenomenal background, as Kato said, and we could talk about that. We'll talk about your book that you're selling too. But I just love I loved your coverage of the SBF trial for Airmail, and that's Graydon Carter's website. But if you know Vanity Fair, Graydon Carter ran Vanity Fair when it was probably the best magazine in the world. It no longer is. But he's brought that to Airmail, and it's the same tone and the same vibe. And Jacob, you're a big part of that. So welcome. Thank you. And say hello to Kato.
Hey, Jacob.
Glad to be here. Great to meet you guys.
I feel like I'm in greatness. You know, he's the 3-time winner on Jeopardy. I mean, come on. You know he's genius already. Winning 3 times. I'm not going to talk about the whole thing, but you got to just real quick. What's the one thing that stands out? The first day of winning, the second. What was it like? The Trebek thing, and then we'll get into Sam Bankman-Fried. But I got to know.
I mean, I admit when I won the first episode. They film up to 5 episodes a day. I filmed 3 through 5 of that day when I won. I felt a little lightheaded, I think, when he first announced it, and then it moves so quickly. So they film an episode in 40 minutes, maybe. I mean, they've been doing this a while. So it's fleeting, you know. Jeopardy glory is fleeting.
Fame is fleeting. I know that. But with that, so can you tell what did you win? How much? Can you're able to say, right? It's public.
38,000.
Nice. How much? That show's taped in California. How much did you go home with? Half of that?
Yeah.
Yeah, it comes like any other check, you know. So
sure.
Their taxes.
Yeah, I was going to get into the last question, you know, the bonus round with the da-da-da, but we'll talk about that later because Tom, it's a full plate.
Yeah, I think
of questions to ask him.
Sure, I think the timing's perfect, like I said, and man, there's just so many directions we can go with this. But Jacob, you were there. Following this probably took over your life for a few weeks or months, and I know you have kids and everything, but it was all SBF all the time. But this trial did captivate the imagination of everybody because it was so public. Yeah. He was so full frontal with his crimes and his fraudulent behavior.
Right, and his whole being of driving, I think it was a Corolla. He's $32 billion, and the girlfriend, you're going, wait a minute, what's the girlfriend? Did you, by the way, see the sketch artist, the drawings of him compared to her? And it was like he must have tipped the sketch artist, am I right? He looked like a GQ model, and they made her her look all droopy like Droopy Dog. And I was like, oh my, you got to tip the sketch artist. You were aware of that, right, Jacob? These pictures that came out of him looking.
When I saw one of the sketches of Bankman-Fried, he looked like an action hero or something, and he certainly does not in real life.
Okay, that is not professional. She did get paid. There's no way you make a mistake and make him look like that. Right, she did that on purpose.
Oh, yeah. Or she was paid by whoever's going to finance the film. It's like, who's going to play him? It's George Clooney, Brad Pitt. It's like, come on. Yeah, it's going to be Borat.
Jonah Hill, I think is
Jonah
the word.
Hill.
But anyway, Jacob, I mean, it's in your rearview mirror now. But let's take you back, because you were either in the courtroom or you were in the overflow room at the courthouse. So you were a part of this. You saw him. You saw the jury. You saw his lawyer, Mark Cohen. You saw the judge. You were involved in this thing. Was there any doubt, suspense, or drama when it came to the actual verdict? Were you sure, after everything that you witnessed, that he was going down? Let's start with that.
I was fairly sure, just because, by any objective standard, I think the prosecution was pretty clear in their case. They had a bunch of insider witnesses, his co-conspirators, his friends, his ex-girlfriend, and they told a clear story. And by the end, I mean, with his pretty disastrous testimony, you're just like, there's no alternative narrative here. Like, what was this guy doing, or what was this company doing? So while there's still some shock that this guy could actually go down, who a year ago was a multi-billionaire, by the end, you're just thinking he hardly has a chance.
Well, so Bitcoin. I really don't. You're going to have to educate me on the Bitcoin. But do you think because of this, there's going to be other Bitcoin billionaires watching this trial going, I'm kind of doing the same thing, money laundering? Or is it, you think there's going to be this, making it aware, especially with your writing of this article? Do you think there are people on the edge of the seat going, God, I might be next?
I think there is some of that. I mean, there are people in crypto who would want to say that, the rot has been cut out of the industry. Sam Bankman-Fried went down. We can all move on. But there are a lot of investigations going on. There are other prosecutions happening. Companies like SafeMoon that dealt with celebrities and things like that. No one really of the status of Sam Bankman-Fried, but Binance, the biggest crypto exchange in the world, is being investigated by the Department of Justice. They might charge CZ, the CEO of the company, who's a very important figure, but he just is not the kind of person who's hanging out in the United States with, Leonardo DiCaprio or Katy Perry or whoever. Yeah. So I think there will be more, and people have a right to look over their shoulders. I think if they're working in this industry, it's so much of a gray area. Yeah. But this is certainly the biggest figure in the English speaking world.
It's just shrouded in mystery. I mean, most people don't fully understand how this works, and but we do understand Shakespearean tales and complex characters and just flat out weirdos. Right. And that's SBF himself. I don't like the guy. There was, from day one, there was something about him that I didn't get. I didn't get sucked into the charm of him. I just thought he was an oddball weirdo, number one. But there's such a dichotomy with this guy, Jacob, and I'm curious, watching him in court, any interactions you had with him, is he a sociopath, or is he did he just get caught up in the moment and start something that he couldn't get out from under this house of cards? Or was he a step ahead of us, knowing what he was doing was wrong the whole way and he was going to ride it out?
Yeah, I went through a few interpretations, but finally in the end, based on speaking to him a little bit and reporting about this guy and watching the trial and reading books about him and everything, it doesn't seem like he feels a lot. He says he doesn't feel empathy for people, that he started faking smiles. He says that in the Michael Lewis book. Even just saw what happened in court. His co-conspirators, they're not always the most sympathetic people, but like Caroline Ellison and some of these others, but they are human beings, and they seem to go through some remorse, or some of them were relieved that it all collapsed. Right. He never feels anything like that, and he just has this incredible indifference to everyone around him. So if someone is kind of the executive here in this situation, who's maybe directing this a little bit, I do think it's him. He's categorically different than the people who did these crimes with him. It does seem like that.
So he gave so much money to the Democratic Party. Will people have to pay the money back? Is that part of the process? Is the process going to happen that people did get money from him, and now we found out that it was money laundering and wire fraud? Will they have to give their money back? And how, if they do, how are they going to give it back? I mean, how are they going to prove it? Is that another trial?
Well, there is going to be another trial. I mean, this guy's going to be in litigation for the rest of his life, however long that may be. But, he could get he could get 20 plus years from this first one, but there already is a trial scheduled for March, and that may deal with these campaign finance charges.
Right.
It's probably going to, with basically dark money and all these donations, and donations really of money he stole from his own customers to politicians, both above board and again, kind of dark money.
Mm-hmm.
And they did that with Republicans too, but he was very publicly aligned with the Democratic Party. And so this other trial is going to be next March. There's probably also going to be perhaps a Foreign Corrupt Practices Act charge, was basically he bribed some people in China for $150 million when they had $1 billion in crypto frozen as part of a money laundering investigation. Wow. You can see a pattern here.
Jeez.
So there's definitely more to come. And I think that's when you really do start to get into some of this like political corruption and, where was the money moving? Who was being paid off? That kind of thing, both here and abroad. And this isn't just like, a light bit of crime. This is serious financial and political corruption.
Yeah, and the fall was just so spectacular and so fast. I mean, think about it. When the Rams played in the Super Bowl at SoFi, remember that against the Bengals? He was the star, right? Here's what kills me.
Yeah, he was there.
Yeah. He rode in a private jet. He flew in a private jet from the Bahamas to LA for the Super Bowl, and then said in court he didn't remember if he flew on a private jet.
Yeah.
And that's where Michael Lewis, who wrote the book on SBF, right, that came out right before the trial, said, okay, this guy is just, what? How do you not recall that? And he just really damaged himself in court. But, when we talk about that Super Bowl, it was Larry David, it was Tom Brady, it was Shaq, it was all these celebrities that were in his world, right?
Right.
And the guy overseeing the bankruptcy case for FTC is the same guy that oversaw the Enron bankruptcy case. And he said it's 10 times a bigger mess than that. So I guess, is there a clawback process that could happen with some of the celebrity endorsers that made so much money from him?
Yeah. That's a good point. So I should have said before, some of these politicians are willingly giving back, these smaller donations, but the celebrities are all getting sued. They're in these class action lawsuits. A lot of this stuff probably ends in settlements and maybe not too much pain to people, but the FTX, the new leadership, is trying to claw back money wherever it can. So they are going to ask for it. Whether some of these celebrities end up being legally compelled to, I don't know. But Shaq, for example, there was some coverage about how he was being served, which is, of course, the question is, how do you miss this guy? And he's on TNT every week. But for a while, he's avoiding being served. Like a lot of these celebrity spokesmen, he was being served in this lawsuit. They eventually gave him the papers. But, I don't expect it's gonna put out these folks too much. I think more so going forward, a lot of people are going to learn a lesson or perhaps fire their business managers and say, like, how did you get me into this? I didn't realize this was so bad.
Right.
Yeah.
Remember Taylor Swift ran from it, right?
Yeah. And they served Shaq overhead at Papa John's. They found him finally.
Shaq's lost weight. He's quicker now. He's elusive.
Well, you know what? If I remember, didn't Brady do a commercial or something with a endorsement with Sam Bankman-Fried? They were on camera together, and he's like,
a lot of them did.
That was a commercial, though, right? Mm-hmm. It was like, how do they not?
But you know what?
How does he sucker these people?
Yeah, but come on. For a while, everybody was sucker. He was on the cover of like Forbes. But
is it money that's the sucker there? Is it like, I'm going to give you this? Who says no to that, right?
Well, Jacob, I think part of it, people just didn't fully understand the world he was running in. And then he was out in the Bahamas. And the money's seductive, right? And you think it's legit because he hadn't gone down yet. And everybody wanted to believe that this was real. And that's what always happens. That's why when you watch American Greed on CNBC, I'm always rooting for the villains. Because it's the people that are the most greedy are the ones that think they're getting rich quick. So, you can understand. If he's throwing out that kind of money, the sponsorship to FTX Arena in Miami for the Heat.
So what do you think, Jacob and Tom? Because I think, Tom, you have an opinion about this. What do you think about his parents?
Do you want me to go first on that one, Jacob? Okay, let's talk.
I would love to hear what you have to say. Yeah.
I hope they're cleaning out a nice prison cell for the two of them as well. I really do.
You think there's involvement?
Heck yes.
Okay.
I totally do. I think this is my opinion. Yeah. Okay. I think they were acting in court. Now, I'm sure they're very emotional with their son, but I think they were probably overdoing it a little bit. I think these guys are complicit. They have to be. And there's enough evidence that's coming out now that says they are. His dad especially was involved in all these email chains, all these conversations, and he knew what was going on, and they were taking money. Yeah. And I think they're going to be next in line. I think they should be very, very worried. What do you think, Jacob?
I agree. I think the evidence is largely there already. So just to be clear to folks who may not know, his parents are eminent law scholars from Stanford, and people say, well, how can these kinds of folks basically break bad? But greed is universal. When people have access to lots of money, or their son does, they may be tempted. So the father, Joseph Bankman, was on the payroll of the company. He was in lots of meetings and also lots of private encrypted chats with his son. And then the mother, Barbara Fried, was more involved in the political operation. So speaking of clawbacks, FTX has already sued the parents, asking them for, there's $10 million in cash that they got, which there's an email saying this will let your mother retire. Thank you. And then they got also a $16 million apartment in the Bahamas that they signed for. And they claimed they thought, oh, we didn't own this, but these are intelligent, well-credentialed people,
attorneys,
and then
we didn't know.
Yeah, who should know exactly what they're doing here. So with Barbara Fried, there's an email in the lawsuit where she is instructing this guy Nishad Singh, an FTX employee and a friend of Sam Bankman-Fried. Here's how basically you do a straw donation. The money's going to go through you, but it's not really your donation, and it's going to come to her organization, her political organization. That donation happened. Nishad Singh pled guilty to campaign finance charges. So it's all there. So all that's really left, I suppose, is to charge her in that same crime. So I really think they are in trouble. They're probably not going to ever teach at Stanford again. And they are facing major financial issues if they have to keep paying for these lawyers.
Jacob, don't kid yourself. She might get a raise at Stanford for all this. You never know.
Yeah.
What college campuses are right now.
Another thing, Jacob, is I don't know a lot of the you follow this. You write about Bitcoin. You write about FTX, of what they do. I wouldn't know. How do they find a jury of his peers? I mean, do these people? Did you see confusion on the jury? Because it is complicated.
It is complicated, but crypto can certainly be confusing. And when you start explaining the different tokens and how they work and stuff like that, and there was some of that during the trial. And I think Sam Bankman-Fried wanted that because if you drown people in technical language, they'll roll their eyes. But there was sort of a cross section of New Yorkers. There are a couple of people who had been from law or finance who seemed to understand what was going on. But also, when you really understand the basics of this, it's like he ran an offshore casino called FTX. It was basically a crypto casino where people could gamble on crypto, and he had $9 billion plus that he transferred to his fund called Alameda, where he spent it. He gave it to his parents. He bought real estate. He put it into companies. And that's the basic crime, is that money wasn't supposed to be touched. And then he lied about it, and he lied to his investors, lied to his customers. That's fraud. And if you're just, a person who hears this stuff and then sees Sam Bankman-Fried say, I cannot recall 140 times, I think those folks get it. And the prosecutor did a good job of saying, you don't need to be a crypto or tech expert to really understand the basic crimes that happened here. He broke old-fashioned wire fraud and securities fraud kind of charges. So I think in the end, that makes sense to people.
I think the crypto of his to the jury was the DNA of the OJ trial, explaining the DNA, and then the crypto being explained to the jury. It's
sort of that end around that they want to do.
How they explain it.
But it's a lot more black and white, right? Yeah. I mean, he commingled the funds, and you can't do that.
Yeah.
You cannot put that into Alameda and just start, making it rain. That's basically what they did.
Yeah, it's a personal ATM.
And I bet part of it too, Jacob, was we're in the Bahamas. We're far away from the SEC, from the federal government. We've got this frat atmosphere in this luxury condo building that they're living in. I bet they played into it a little bit. They thought, they really going to catch us over here. Maybe they thought it was just a matter of time, but I could see how some of this just got going. And then once that train left the station, it just was, they couldn't stop it.
Yeah, I think there was a sense of both impunity, but also just living in another world. They're, like you said, they're in the Bahamas. They're living in the nicest luxury development. They're a $35 million penthouse, which a bunch of them were living together in, and buying tons of real estate. Sam Bankman-Fried spoke to people about wanting or needing unlimited money. There was this just sense that everything would just keep on going up forever. And even before that, they did business in Hong Kong. They did a lot of potentially suspect stuff in Hong Kong. These guys are always, they were never really had 2 feet on the ground. And then when they're in the US, he's pouring money all over Capitol Hill and really feeling like he has a lot of influence. So just in the sense of how could he think he could get away with this? You sort of understand how it could take on that sort of life of its own.
Did everything happen because of a leaked balance sheet? Did it all because of this leak sheet? Is that what started the whole, the snowball rolling and getting bigger? Was it all because of this leaked balance sheet?
In a lot of ways, yes. But, the balance sheet was sort of what ended up revealing the fraud or starting the series of events. So, this was going to collapse. Sam Bankman-Fried was making, that's what I think people should also know. This guy made a lot of bad decisions. he was pouring money into stuff that he couldn't unwind very quickly when he needed money. They were borrowing from everyone, and lots of other companies were going bankrupt. So almost exactly a year ago, about a year and a week ago, you had this balance sheet from Alameda, the trading firm, leak to CoinDesk, and it said like, okay, these guys are basically built on monopoly money. And that's what really started the panic and people trying to withdraw their money from FTX. All the money should have been there. But so you had sort of a bank run, but it's like a bank that should never have given out any of the money. Instead, people start asking for their money back, and they have to say, oops, it's not there because maybe we spent it.
I got some great advice for Sam Bankman-Fried if and when he gets out of prison. If you want to operate a get-rich-quick scheme, I've got the perfect thing for you. Become a really bad football coach, like Josh McDaniels for the Raiders, who they owe about $30 million. They fired him or more. Mel Tucker of Michigan State, try to get his $80 million or whatever he thinks they owe them when they get fired. Or be a lawyer that just loses cases. Mark Cohen, he lost the Maxwell trial, right? He lost that one, and then he follows that up with getting, basically his butt handed to him in this one. Now, I'm sure it wasn't the easiest client to work with, SBF. He probably didn't listen to a thing, but what'd you think of the attorney Cohen's performance? Could he have done more? What's your take on that?
I have to admit, there was a lot of questioning, not just from me, who maybe came in here thinking this guy is probably guilty, but like I would talk to other people in the observation rooms and some lawyers and some journalists, and they're just like, what are these guys doing? Like, where, again, like you need an alternative story. You need to be able to tell the jury and the public, actually, this is what happened. It may seem unlikely. You may not like this guy, but this is what happened. And there was never a clear alternative. They would sort of get bogged down in minutia or in some of that technical language that, people are rolling their eyes or going to sleep practically. I admit I fell asleep a couple times in the overflow room. But so it wasn't very impressive. And I didn't go to the Maxwell trial. I read about it like anyone, but I heard they did a pretty good job considering like the stakes or what was going on there. He and his team. I did not really think so here. You're just wondering, like, is it because the client is so difficult? Like, why can't you guys just come up with a convincing narrative of an alternative story here? And we never got that.
Do you think that he got paid for this trial, or was it pro bono, or he just got all the publicity?
He was supposed to be paid, and frankly, he's probably being paid out of this $10 million plus that was given to the parents and is going to soon be clawed back. So
the parents are paying.
Some people think like they need to get this done as soon as possible because he needs to because they're not going to be able to pay him maybe in a couple months.
Well, maybe that explains things. He never got his retainer. He just showed up for trial without any prep. I'm not sure. Yeah, there's a lot of other interesting characters in this thing. And on top of that, in my opinion, is Carolyn Ellison, the girlfriend, the 28-year-old CEO of Alameda. Never made sense on paper. This thing just seems so bizarre. They used to date. They had this weird sexual relationship I still haven't figured out. Is she going to go to prison? Because I know she was a great witness. She took SBF down. I mean, they needed her. But she's guilty of a lot of crimes herself. Please tell me she's at least going to serve some time.
I think so. You have 4 people who have pled guilty from these companies, but and then Sam Bankman-Fried has been convicted, of course. 3 of those people testified during the trial. I think they were all pretty good witnesses, frankly, and they all had, were expected to get some leniency. I do think they'll serve some time, but it's going to be a lot less. Single-digit years, maybe with parole. Sam Bankman-Fried, I think, will get a significant sentence, but they did what they were supposed to do, and they gave earnest, very detailed and clear testimony. Like, Sam told me to do this. We were in this place in his apartment in November, and then I wrote the fake balance sheet, and he read it. You really understood how they all fit into the criminal puzzle. That said, these are co-conspirators and like one of the biggest frauds of the 21st century, and they did it with very little regret until the very end. So I would expect some kind of punishment. We'll see what actually happens.
Well, it got to be really. Sam Bankman-Fried has got to be freaking out when he knows that Caroline Ellison's meeting with the prosecutors, and he's thinking, "Oh, she's going to get a plea deal. I know she's going to get a plea deal." So she gets the plea deal, and she said it was such a relief that he finally got caught because it was so emotional because she hated lying. I believe it. I mean, I wasn't there, but you saw it. You believe it?
Yeah, she got a little choked up at one point in court, and I think these people aren't always very likable, or they did some bad things. But
Mhm.
like I said, there seems to be a difference between him and some of the co-conspirators. Like they seem like human beings.
Yeah.
You still hope for the law to be applied to them and everything, but there's a reason why he never even asked for a deal or offered to cooperate. Also, the government said in court that they didn't offer any kind of deal or willingness to negotiate. Like the government really wanted to prosecute this guy and put him away. He had all the arrogance in the world that thought he could get away with it. And
Mhm.
whereas his co-conspirators, his colleagues could not wait
Sure.
to talk to the U.S. attorney.
So Jacob, he wasn't offered a plea. He didn't even have a
Wait.
chance if he wanted to.
As far as I know,
Okay.
he was not.
Wow, incredible.
Yeah. Did they play tapes of him during interviews when he did interviews
Oh,
on
yeah.
ABC? Did they? That was a big part because
This is one of the amazing things about this trial is
yeah.
that he was. I mean, he's a talker.
Yeah.
This guy is a little strange and weird, but he's not shy really. He's awkward, but he talked all the time on his way up and put himself as the face of this company. He interviewed people. He would send private messages to journalists at 4 a.m. Sometimes I got a couple of those because he was up all night. And so he thought he could talk his way out of this too. And that went pretty badly until he was sent back to jail. And then, but in court, you would hear, okay, here's his interview that he did with Bloomberg. We're going to play a clip. Or here's something he said in front of Congress. We're going to play a clip.
Wow.
Actually, one of my colleagues, Zeke Fox, who wrote a great crypto book that Sam Bankman-Fried is in, they handed a copy of that book to Sam Bankman-Fried and said, please read the interview that you did with this guy. And, but he says, I cannot recall. And they're like, okay, well, you should take a look at the book. So it was all his own words. And again, if you're doing fraud, you're probably saying one thing in public and doing something different secretly in private. And so the record was there. Like he was promising all kinds of things and then doing something totally different.
Right. When your ego gets so big, Tom, you're going to lose.
And when there's that much money involved,
Yeah.
right, and where you can just buy your way out of it, and then people are just worshiping you because of this money that you're basically stealing. So I'm sitting next to the guy who was involved in the biggest trial in the history of the planet, where the person was looked pretty guilty but got off. Jacob, you were there in the courtroom with another guy that looked as guilty and got convicted. And the next big question is sentencing. He's got to wait till March to find out. Could be decades and decades. It could be life. I mean, come on. It's if they stuck with the guidelines and there's no floor, there's no minimum.
Yeah.
I guess it's let's guess. I'm gonna say the judge, because SBF probably annoyed him a lot during this trial.
Yes.
I'm gonna say 25 years. I'm going with 25. Kato?
50.
Jacob?
Wow. I think easily 20, just based on the circumstances. The folks I've talked to think he'll get much more than Elizabeth Holmes, who's sometimes held up as a comp, but she got 11 plus years. He really annoyed the judge, who is no shrinking violet, and he probably lied on the stand. And there, like you said, he could get 110 if they really want to do it. But yeah, you could easily see 20 plus years. And then you have this other trial in March which again, very serious criminal charges. Like, I know people thought that maybe he was going to get off because he was influential or gave a lot of money to Democrats, but in this case, it's really not happening.
Yeah, I think people are running from him. He was toxic, right? I mean, which is, once the feds come down on you and get you in your crosshairs, it's over for the most part.
Yeah.
You can't, unless you have unlimited funds, which he used to. He could have fought this before, but not any longer.
Is he in a prison? Is it a white collar prison?
Well, we don't know yet, right?
But
that's a good question.
Yeah, where is he at now?
Did he go right back to jail?
He should be right back in jail here in Brooklyn, where I am, in the MDC, I believe, where Ghislaine Maxwell has been in the past. But and a lot of people who are facing trials, eventually, they're going to do the whole sentencing memos and all these kind of official processes. But he'll get sentenced in March and then probably move to a medium security federal prison, something like that.
Sure, and there's going to be more trials too, Kato. There's more charges.
But they have pickleball courts, some of them, and they have all these things. It's sort of, sometimes people call it like it's kind of like a resort, like the Bahamas.
I'm not sure if
he's
it's
back
that
in the
nice.
Bahamas. It's not that, with bars.
All right, let's play a little game, because we do have the master of Jeopardy here, right?
Yep.
Okay, Jacob, rank them for me, 1 to 3. Who's the biggest fraud, the most evil fraud of these three? Bernie Madoff, Elizabeth Holmes, or Sam Bankman-Fried? The Hall of Fame, the Mount Rushmore.
Yeah. It's
What
really
order
tough.
are they going?
Well, it depends if you're judging morally or like sort of criminal exploits. Like, I think Bernie Madoff is like a good criminal, like good at being a criminal. That lasted for like decades. He kept his circle small. He hired people loyal to him. He exploited people for a lot of money. So in terms of like impact and hurting a lot of people, he might be number one. Elizabeth Holmes, someone actually died. Like one of her chief scientists killed himself because he was bullied into not blowing the whistle, and like cancer patients got fake test results. Like that's really bad, even though she fooled some people who we may not like so much. And then 3, you have Sam Bankman-Fried, who is this basically a sociopath, hurt a lot of everyday people. But you know what? He really had this speed run through crypto. It all lasted less than 5 years. It's pretty remarkable that way. So it's a great story. I think he's inner circle Hall of Famer scammer, but in some ways he may be number 2 or 3 on that list.
Did you know all 3 personally? In meeting,
No.
Not friends, but interviews or anything. Did you know them?
I actually talked to Bernie Madoff's prosecutor, the guy who prosecuted Madoff, and he had some interesting things to say, and that's what really made me realize, okay, this guy was actually, diabolical and good at what he did, which was that he fooled people for a long time, which takes its own kind of evil, perhaps. But so I learned a lot about that, and that's when you really see also how reckless Sam Bankman-Fried was. Like he was up all night doing a lot of reckless things, taking stimulants,
Reckless.
and like he stole a lot of money, but he was not going to last very long, I think.
Here's how I look at it. I look at Elizabeth Holmes and I look at Bernie Madoff, that they couldn't have had any peace or rest or any moment where they're not fearful for months and months and months. They knew it was crashing. It was coming down. I think it was party time. We're going to get away with this. One more investor, we make it even. We clean up this mess with Alameda. The fall from grace for SBF, Sam Bankman-Fried, I think is the most dramatic we've ever seen, because he goes literally from 1 month being on top of the world to now this shame, disgrace, oddball that is going to spend multiple decades in prison.
Yeah, I think when you put it that way, and certainly a year ago this week was, I mean, I was covering crypto, so I was sort of immersed in all this, but really was like one of the most dramatic weeks in corporate history. Like you had this guy who was pretty widely admired, certainly famous and worth $20 billion plus. And then in a week, it all crumbles, and he's sort of public enemy number 1.
Yeah, and I also think it's also because Bernie Madoff, the story wasn't as big as Sam Bankman-Fried, because Fried was more of a personality, always out in the camera, where Madoff knew you had to stay silent, small circle of friends. And I saw the HBO special on Madoff. I laughed my ass off, but then I realized it was Larry David on Curb Your Enthusiasm. I go, this isn't it. This is Curb. That's not. Wasn't it? Didn't Larry David play him?
Kato, what? Don't you get TV Guide?
I don't know what's going on. TV Guide? They still have that?
Oh man, it's the crazy thing is, this guy isn't an idiot, right? I mean, he graduated from MIT. His parents are professors at Stanford.
Yeah.
I mean, he could have done some great things in this world, really, with what he was given. And greed just took over. I think that's the bottom line.
Yeah.
He's just this bumbling schmuck, right, that he tried to sell, and it just all came crashing down.
Well, Jacob, and Tom, when to that point, there had to be a part where he's actually doing something where he's like, hey, I'm doing something that's legitimate. There had to be a moment of, hey, I can make a lot of money off people by maybe lying.
I think so.
Yeah. I think some of what he was doing was legitimate, but there were a lot of red flags early on. He first started the trading firm and then went off to Hong Kong, and there are a lot of questions about some of the companies he worked with there and things like that. But then when he started FTX in 2019, for all of crypto's faults, like this was a semi-legitimate business. Like it was a crypto exchange. There were a lot of them, and people could go on there and buy crypto. So if you left the money there and just pocketed the fees and things like that, it could have been an ongoing business. But really, from the beginning, he didn't care about leaving the money there, and he would let it just feed money to Alameda, which is where that's where his greedy appetite came out, was through Alameda.
It's just like he really has no one to blame but himself. He was just so self-destructive, so reckless, so careless for a guy that graduated from MIT. Did you have any personal interactions with him? Did you see him in the hallway? Did you talk to him? Did you interview him for anything that you were working on? And what were your impressions? Because everybody can read people. My impressions of him were he was just so unlikable, creepy, weird, odd. And then you get the vibe that he thinks he's smarter than everybody. So he's going to throw out the hairdo and the shorts, the board shorts, and look like a slob, and that's going to fix everything. What was your takeaway?
In 2022, before everything collapsed a year ago, November 2022. Before that, I talked to him some that year in person a little bit, interviewed him for a book I co-wrote. And we were, DMing a little bit on Twitter, a couple signal messages. Which is not typical. I mean, CEOs don't usually send me private messages.
Right.
He was more unfiltered than your typical CEO. Like there wasn't much PR involved, but that of course helped him schmooze journalists on his way up. But I was a little skeptical because I just didn't really see the genius there. I have always asked questions about crypto and seen it a little bit more as a tool for breaking the law, which is one of the best uses for it.
Wow.
And so I didn't quite see it, but then once it collapsed, I would message with him a little bit, kind of this time last year, and just wondering like, where is this guy's sense of urgency or panic? And I in my interactions with him, I never really found that. Or there was one time over the summer, right before he got sent back to jail for witness tampering, a serious offense. I ran into him in the hallway at the court, and I almost didn't know what to say to him, but I asked him what room he was going into, and he just sort of looks at me and shrugs and ties his shoes. This is a guy who doesn't seem always up to the moment. And yeah, there's some intelligence there, but when he was in court and is on the stand, he would answer yes or no questions with these long monologues. And they would interrupt him and say, that was a yes or no question. The judge would interrupt him and say, answer the question. And it's like, if you're in court by then, like, I'm sorry, it doesn't matter how smart you are. You have to play by the rules of the court. Right. Otherwise, you're not walking out of there. And he just couldn't really match the moment like that.
He didn't help his case either that he actually brought in his own beanbag chair. So, sitting in the court.
I figured he would have had Velcro shoes and couldn't even tie his own shoelaces.
Or something, yeah.
Oh, wow.
It's going to be a film. I don't know if...
give
I'm
the
sure
Oscar,
films.
You guys give the Oscar right now to Jonah Hill. If he plays Sam Bankman-Fried, he's going to win an Oscar.
Jacob, do you hear rumors? You are connected to this.
I mean, he could certainly do it, and people have tossed that name around because he seems so well suited, if nothing else. But there's a project at Apple, there's one at Amazon. I'm sure there are others. I've already been interviewed for a documentary or two. There are probably going to be 5 or 6 of those.
Wow.
So there's going to be a lot.
But no one can actually fit because there's no ending yet. There's no real ending yet.
Yeah, but there kind of is. I mean, there's going to be a postscript, but he's going to prison. I think now's the time you can do the project.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Because it crashed. FTC crashed.
Things will boot up again.
Yeah.
Well, I'll watch it.
All right. Hey, anything else? Are you glad it's in your rear view mirror? Do you kind of get your life back now? Or were you into it?
A little bit. Mm-hmm. Yeah, to be honest, it was kind of like what you guys were just saying. Like, look, by the end of this, I did feel some antipathy towards the guy because this is someone who doesn't care about the people around him, who wasted so much money. Like, you could do some things with $8 billion. You could probably benefit some people or have a real business. And by the end, it was just like we're sitting in court listening to this guy lie and evade everything and just surrounded by catastrophic waste. And so, by the end, you're a little bit relieved that this is done.
Yeah, and that's what prisons are built for guys like him. I mean, he rolled the dice and it didn't work.
Yeah.
He very much did it to himself. Mm-hmm. And like you said, there were friends of his, some of the people who pled guilty too, were saying, hey man, let's slow down. Like, we are way in the hole here. You can't buy a Bitcoin mine in Kazakhstan for $1 billion. But he would say, no, I think we can do it. Let's just cook the books.
Wow.
And they did it.
This has been so great to have Jacob on.
Yeah.
I want to end it on asking Tom and myself on Jeopardy, your last question where they play the final Jeopardy. What was your question you give to us? I'm going to see if we can answer it. And I don't have any knowledge of what the question is. So when you won the money.
You want what they asked me and what I got wrong to get eliminated.
Oh, no. I want you to where you won the money, the question you got correct. You got the final Jeopardy correct, I imagine, right?
I did on the first one.
Yeah. Let's hear that one.
This one was, I thought, not too hard, but I was going into Final Jeopardy in the lead, so I was feeling good.
And you know what to wager.
Yeah, this website opened in Chicago it was something
Groupon.
Like 2011.
What is Groupon?
Exactly, with a deal for pizza.
I knew Groupon was based in Chicago, and I knew it was... Okay.
The one I got wrong was...
Okay, the one that
I got wrong was, the movie Doubt? That was the answer. But it was like this.
Oh, Doubt with Philip Seymour Hoffman, right?
Yeah, and they didn't name the actors, but they said one whatever Oscar won. I'm not sure if it was Best Picture, but won this and it's set at this rectory or something like that.
I would have got it right.
I was digging and just couldn't get it.
What was your answer?
I think I said something like History Boys because I was just trying to think of a play.
Right. Good job.
I love it. Well,
Good for you.
You're a champion in our show.
Hey,
the
I think that's
nerves
awesome.
overtake you. Yeah, the nerves overtake you.
Jacob,
Like,
Kato's dream is to become a game show host, right?
Yeah,
That's his,
yeah.
and he'd be a great one, no question about
it
it.
seems like a great gig, and you're an affable guy. I'm sure you could do it.
We'll see. We'll see the connections I have. It'll happen.
Hey, Jacob, it's always
Speak
fun.
it into existence.
It's always fun to talk to guys like you who cover trials, who understand pop culture at the highest level. Where were you? I don't even know how old you are. Hopefully you're older than 30. But, during the O.J. Simpson saga trial, approaching the 30-year anniversary next year. Would you have liked to cover that case?
Certainly. I mean, I was a kid, but I remember it so well. I was telling my folks that I was coming on the show because I grew up in Los Angeles, West LA. Like, frankly, I rollerbladed by the crime scene when I was like a 12-year-old.
Right.
I remember the verdict. I remember a lot of it. It was one of those things from childhood lore. So, Kato, when I heard your name, it certainly resonated.
Oh yeah, though it's funny because every time there's a trial, I get a phone call from a network for my expert opinion, and I'm not an expert. Give me an expert opinion about crashing on a couch. When I just tell people I can afford my own couch, yes, please. I'm a homeowner now.
Kato, you're one of those guys though that you have to. It's so appropriate that you have a memorable name.
Yeah.
Because if your name was Bill Smith, on the trial, I don't think it resonates, and the name fits your personality so well, and you could just be larger than life forever.
I tell you what, when I hear Kato Kaelin, myself hearing my name, I always hear my name being said by Larry King, because he always said Kato Kaelin, and it just always resonated with me. Like, yeah, that's the way I like someone saying my name, because Larry King's got that voice, the late Larry King, and he would be a friend. But every time he'd go. When I'd see him around, he goes, Kato, get over here. So it's sort of like Norm from Cheers.
No, that's great. Jacob, do you need us to run by the house, tell your parents anything? Are you good? Your friends in the neighborhood?
And what book?
Plug whatever. Hey, first let me say this. Let me just say this before you say anything. You are a great writer. I mean, it's just the flow, the way you make it come to life. Go subscribe to Airmail if you guys used to love Vanity Fair, or if you just like good reporting of this SBF trial and everything else. So fantastic stuff. Airmail.com. It's only like $10 a month, and it's totally worth it. So go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah. So I've been writing there. My website's jacobsilverman.com. I'm on Twitter too. And I have a book that I co-wrote with the actor Ben McKenzie about sort of our year and a half falling down the crypto rabbit hole and meeting a lot of these characters, including Sam Bankman-Fried and some other people who are now in jail. And it's called Easy Money, Cryptocurrency, Casino Capitalism, and the Golden Age of Fraud. And I think it's pretty fun. I hope people read it.
All right, and also Easy Money with Charlie Sheen and Chris Tucker.
Oh, yeah, I just watched that a couple months ago.
Yeah.
I just watched that. The shootout at the Coliseum.
Yeah.
The LA Coliseum. Remember that?
Ben McKenzie was on a Fox.
He was on the OC.
The OC. That's okay. It was CW then. Okay. Sure.
And Gotham also.
That's what it was. Okay. Because I used to host Comic Cons, and I think he showed up a few Comic Cons. Sure. When I traveled on a road show. Ben McKenzie.
Well, hey, next time you're in LA, let's do something live with you. We could talk about other things.
That'd
be a blast.
Great. Thank you. I get there once or twice a year, so I'd be happy to.
Okay, fantastic. Back to watching over those kids, whatever else you got to do.
I have a cat right here, too. You might have heard him during the recording.
All right. Well, hey, man, this was awesome. Great perspective on the trial.
Much.
Thank you.
Great to meet you.
A lot of fun. Thank you.
All right. Jacob Silverman. All right. Thanks, man.
Thanks, Jacob.
Great seeing you. Well, that was awesome.
Yep.
That was fantastic.
Big fan. Big fan.
I was reading his stories on the trial throughout the trial. And, this is just such a fascinating, exactly a year ago is when this was all going down. Think about it. He talked the Miami Heat, and that includes Pat Riley, into taking his money to name. Did you see how fast those cranes got to the arena to take the sign down, FTX Arena, after this all blew up last November? It's pretty funny. I'm
telling the story. It's going to be a huge hit film. You just know it. Whoever's going to play him, but I think Jonah Hill's a great choice. But I'm blown away, and I don't know anything. I would never get involved in Bitcoin, crypto. I don't know it, so I don't. It doesn't seem real to me still.
Well, this will probably scare a lot more people off, right? Yeah. Just knowing that this can happen. But yeah, you look at what Hulu did with the Theranos story, which was fantastic. All the Bernie Madoff movies, HBO did one. So this is just ripe. This is gonna be so good. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, Tom, I was talking to him real quickly. It's so funny that I mentioned before in our show that I had jury duty. I didn't get picked, but now you kind of go. It wouldn't be such a bad to sit on a jury if it's a great big case, because when I was there, they said it was going to be, they interviewed people. It said this next one is a special circumstances and you'll have to be there for 25 days. And then, of course, we had Megan Kuniff on our show, and I was like, what trial? This has got to be a huge trial. It's either a murder trial or a fraud trial.
Yeah, the one that goes off in our mind is Tom Girardi, the big lawyer here.
So I want to find out because it's going to obviously be in the news very soon.
Yeah, and that's a story, and that's a case, because that involves a housewife of Beverly Hills, and it's the story is incredible.
Yeah.
The Hulu ABC documentary that they did on that, it was so good, and we're going to bring that to life on this show. So, hey, make sure you subscribe right here on our YouTube channel. If you're listening, make sure you subscribe on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get this. Share this. If you have any friends that just want to learn about this trial and what SBF was really like, send them this episode and follow us on social media as well.
1 degree of Scandalous on YouTube. We're on fire.
Hey, by the way, I got suspended off Instagram for like a day.
Oh, you got back on?
I got back on. They had to verify my date, but man, it was serious. I think it was a more harshly written message from Instagram than what Sam Bankman-Fried got from the SEC. You know, serious. They meant business, and I don't even know what I did.
So what did you do? You wrote them back?
I had to basically prove my identity. So I sent them my driver's license and they rejected that. Then I had to send them my passport, and then it happened pretty quickly. But I thought it was done. I mean, the way they wrote that, and I didn't. I posted a couple clips of Jason Alexander. Now, he was talking about breaking into Britney's house.
I don't know if that'd be it, though.
Right.
Who knows?
Yeah.
That's kind of public now. Everybody was on TMZ.
Yeah.
So
anyway,
I'm glad you're back on.
All right, Kato.
And by the way, follow Tom on Instagram.
Follow Kato, especially when you know he's traveling, because he's got the best content of the airport races and everything else.
At Kato_Kalin. Thank you, Tom.
At Kato_Kalin. All right, do it. 1 degree of Scandalous. Kato Kalin, the one and only. And Tom Zenner.
The one and only.
Thanks for watching and listening. We'll see you next week.